Ancient symbols cover weathered stone and clay, yet their messages remain locked away. For centuries, scholars have stared at these inscriptions, completely unable to read them. We are surrounded by the ghosts of entire civilizations, their stories and knowledge trapped in plain sight. This is the enduring mystery of the world's oldest undeciphered scripts. By the end of this journey, you will discover 25 of these ancient puzzles and understand exactly why they have resisted all attempts to crack their codes. We will explore a clay disc stamped with a spiral of unknown symbols and investigate wooden tablets from a remote island that hold a lost language. What do you believe is the greatest story left untold by history? Our journey begins not with a grand monument, but with humble, sun-baked clay. In the dusty plains of ancient Iran, a civilization known as Elam was taking its first steps toward recording its world. They developed a script now called Proto Elamite, and its creation around 3,100 years before the Common Era makes it one of the very oldest writing systems we know of, nearly as ancient as the earliest cuneiform from neighboring Mesopotamia. These were not epic poems carved in stone. They were practical records, lists of goods, livestock, and rations pressed into clay tablets by anonymous scribes. You can almost picture the hands that shaped them, working to account for the wealth of a burgeoning society. Yet for all their apparent simplicity, these tablets have become one of history's most stubborn puzzles. The core of the problem lies in its isolation. Unlike the famous Rosetta Stone, which provided a Greek translation of Egyptian hieroglyphs, no such bilingual key exists for Proto Elamite. There is no parallel text, no handy dictionary left behind. The script itself is a major hurdle. Its signs are highly abstract, a collection of lines, circles, and wedges that show no obvious connection to the objects they might represent. This is not a picture language that slowly evolved. It seems to have been a fully formed, sophisticated system from the start, designed to represent the Elamite language, which itself remains poorly understood. Scholars can recognize numerical notations and have identified over 1,000 distinct signs, suggesting it was a complex mix of logograms, which stand for whole words, and syllabic signs, which represent sounds. But without a starting point, without a single confirmed word, every attempt to read it hits a wall. The civilization that created these records faded, and its foundational story, locked in plain sight on these fragile tablets, remains utterly silent, waiting for the key that will give it a voice. While the silence of Proto-Elamite is profound, it is not alone. Far to the east, along the fertile floodplains of the Indus River, another great civilization was flourishing at almost the same time. The Indus Valley civilization was a marvel of the ancient world, a sprawling network of sophisticated cities with advanced plumbing and well-organized streets. And like the Elamites, they developed their own unique script, a writing system that has become one of the most famous and frustrating enigmas in all of archaeology. This script appears on thousands of small, intricately carved stone seals, often featuring beautiful depictions of animals like bulls, elephants, and mythical unicorns. These seals are masterpieces of miniature art, but the few lines of text that accompany the images are what truly captivate us. The problem is their brevity. The average inscription is painfully short, just 4 or 5 signs in length. It is as if we have recovered thousands of ancient business cards or name tags, but never the letter, the story, or the law code that would give them context. How can you decode a language when you only ever have its shortest possible phrases? Without a longer text, statistical analysis becomes a guessing game, and patterns are nearly impossible to confirm. The dream of every codebreaker is to find a Rosetta Stone, a single artifact that bears the same message in both a known language and an unknown one. For the Indus script, no such key has ever been found. This absence has not stopped countless attempts at decipherment. Over the decades, scholars and amateurs alike have proclaimed they have cracked the code, linking it to everything from an ancient form of Sanskrit to a distant ancestor of Tamil. One popular theory suggests it is not a language at all, but a system of political or religious symbols, yet each new claim collapses under scrutiny, failing to consistently read the inscriptions or provide a believable translation. The symbols remain aloof, a silent testament to a people who built one of the world's first urban societies, whose story is etched in stone but whose voice we cannot yet hear. The frustration of short inscriptions reaches its peak on the sun-drenched island of Crete. Here, at the dawn of the European Bronze Age, a culture we call the Minoans developed a writing system so visually striking it has earned the modern name Cretan hieroglyphs. Do not let the term mislead you. These are not the elaborate pictograms of ancient Egypt, though they share a similar artistic flair. Cretan hieroglyphs are a unique and intensely local creation, a script composed of elegant, finely drawn symbols that look like stylized people, plants, animals, and everyday objects. They appear primarily on small, four-sided seal stones made of precious materials like ivory or soft stone, and on a handful of clay tablets. Each object feels like a personal treasure, a tiny canvas for a lost language. The problem, once again, is one of scarcity. The entire known body of Cretan hieroglyphic writing amounts to barely over 300 inscriptions, and most of these are just 2 or 3 signs long. We have fragments of a vocabulary but no sentences. We have the alphabet but no book. This scarcity makes every attempt to understand the script a monumental challenge. It stands as the mysterious ancestor to the better-known Linear A and Linear B scripts that followed it on Crete. We know that Linear B was later deciphered, revealing an early form of Greek used by the Mycenaean palace administrators. This breakthrough, however, casts only a shadow of light on its predecessors. The relationship between these scripts is like a family tree where we know the grandchild but not the grandparent. Scholars can see that some signs in the older Cretan hieroglyphs may have evolved into signs in Linear A, but the language behind both of these earlier systems remains completely unknown. Was it the same language, or did a new people bring a new tongue? The hieroglyphs themselves offer no easy answer. Their purpose is another layer of the mystery. The fact that they are found so often on seal stones suggests a practical, administrative use, perhaps to mark ownership or authenticate goods. Yet the beautiful, almost ceremonial craftsmanship implies something more, a role in expressing identity or status. Were these the personal signatures of Minoan elites, their names and titles encoded in a beautiful, secret script? Without a longer text, a royal decree, or a religious prayer, we can only guess. The symbols stare back at us from their intricate seals, a silent and beautiful code from the very heart of Europe's first great civilization. The evolution of writing on Crete did not stop with its beautiful hieroglyphs. The same Minoan civilization later developed a more streamlined and efficient script, one that was written with a stylus on soft clay tablets. We call this script Linear A. Emerging around 1800 years before the Common Era, it represents a clear technological leap, a move from pictorial symbols etched on seals to a cursive script suited for the complex record-keeping of a palace economy. These clay tablets are the archives of the Minoan world, listing quantities of grain, oil, and livestock, the very lifeblood of their society. We can see the administrative mind at work, yet we cannot understand the language it was thinking in. This is the central paradox of Linear A. We know its shape, but not its soul. The mystery deepens when we consider its successor, the script known as Linear B. Centuries later, the Mycenaean Greeks occupied the great Minoan palaces like Knossos. They adopted the Linear A writing system, adapted its signs, and used it to write their own language. This adapted script is Linear B, and it was spectacularly deciphered in the 1950s, revealing an early form of Greek. This was a monumental breakthrough, but it created a unique dilemma for understanding Linear A. We can now read the signs of Linear B, and we can see that many of those signs were borrowed directly from the older Linear script. This means we know with a high degree of certainty what sound values many Linear signs likely represent. We can phonetically pronounce large portions of a Linear tablet, but this is a hollow victory because the language those sounds are meant to form remains completely unknown. It is like having a key that fits a lock only to discover the room behind the door is empty. The language which scholars call Minoan is not Greek. It does not appear to be related to any other known language family from the region. So when we sound out the words on a Linear tablet, we are just producing nonsense syllables, a collection of sounds without any meaning we can grasp. The script itself is syllabic, meaning each sign stands for a consonant-vowel combination like ma, ti, or po. This structure is clear, but without knowing the underlying vocabulary or grammar, the texts are just administrative lists of untranslatable terms. We can see that a certain amount of a commodity called kuro was recorded, but we have no idea what kuro was. Was it a type of spice, a measure of wool, the name of an official? We simply do not know. This has not stopped modern researchers from trying new approaches. With the traditional methods of linguistics hitting a wall, scholars have turned to computational power. They use complex algorithms to analyze the patterns and frequencies of the signs, searching for hidden structures that might point to grammatical rules or word roots. They compare the statistical properties of Linear to those of known and unknown languages from around the world, hoping for a match. So far, no algorithm has provided the definitive key. The language of the Minoans, the people who built the legendary labyrinth and presided over a vibrant maritime empire, remains locked within the very records they left behind, a silent whisper on clay that we can see but cannot hear. Among the countless clay tablets left by the Minoans, one artifact stands utterly apart. Discovered in the palace of Phaistos in southern Crete, the Phaistos Disc is a baked clay circle about 6 inches across, and its message is unlike anything else in the ancient world. Instead of being hand-written with a stylus, its symbols were pressed into the clay with individual seals, making it one of the oldest examples of movable type printing in history. These symbols march in a tight, clockwise spiral from the outer edge toward the center, divided into sections by etched lines to form what appear to be groups of words. The visual effect is mesmerizing, a perfect, self-contained puzzle. Its isolation is its greatest mystery. Not a single other object like it has ever been found on Crete or anywhere else in the world. The script it uses is unique, with 45 distinct pictographs showing everything from human heads and shields to bees and ships. Because it is a one-of-a-kind object with no parallel texts, decipherment efforts are built on pure speculation. How do you begin to decode a message when you have nothing to compare it to? The theories about its purpose are as varied as its symbols. Some believe it is a sacred hymn or a prayer to a goddess, its spiral form representing a journey to the divine. Others argue it is a legal document or a royal proclamation stamped with authority. More imaginative suggestions propose it is a board game, a geometric theorem, or even an ancient star chart. Without a second example or a bilingual text, every proposed translation is merely a story told about the disc, not a reading of it. The disc remains a solitary enigma, a single, loud statement from the past whose meaning has been completely lost to the silence that surrounds it. Far from the Mediterranean world, on the most isolated inhabited island on Earth, another script emerged in complete solitude. Easter Island, famous for its massive stone moai statues, also produced a unique writing system known as Rongorongo. The name itself means to recite, to declaim, to chant out, suggesting these were not simple marks but a medium for spoken words. The script is a beautiful and baffling cascade of intricate glyphs, carved meticulously into wooden tablets with a shark's tooth or an obsidian flake. The characters are a mix of geometric shapes, humanoid figures, and stylized animals like birds and fish, arranged in a unique reverse boustrophedon pattern. This means the lines of text are read from left to right, but when you reach the end of a line, you physically turn the tablet upside down to read the next line, which then runs right to left. It is a visual and intellectual puzzle carved in wood. The timing of its appearance is a subject of intense debate. Some believe it developed independently on the island, a stunning intellectual achievement for a society known for its monumental sculpture. Others argue it might have been inspired after European contact, sparked by the visitors' own strange practice of writing. Whatever its origin, its demise is tragically clear. After Peruvian slave raids in the 1860s devastated the island's population, taking away the chiefs and learned men who could read the tablets, the knowledge was irrevocably broken. The last known expert died without passing on the key, leaving behind the silent tablets as ghosts of a lost tradition. The connection to the island's famous birdman cult is one of the most compelling leads. Many of the glyphs depict bird-like men and ceremonial paddles, imagery central to the annual competition where warriors swam to a nearby islet to retrieve the first sooty-tern egg of the season. The winner's chief would then become the sacred birdman for the year. It is plausible that the Rongorongo tablets recorded the rituals, myths, and lineage of this powerful cult. Yet, with only 26 authentic wooden artifacts known to exist, and none of them providing a clear bilingual text, the code remains unbroken. The few attempts by islanders in the late 19th century to read the tablets for ethnographers are now considered unreliable, likely being improvised performances rather than true translations. The wooden tablets themselves are fragile, and many were destroyed by misguided missionaries or simply rotted away in the island's humid climate. Each surviving artifact is therefore precious, a frozen moment of a unique intellectual tradition that flourished in total isolation and then vanished, leaving behind the imposing moai to guard a secret they cannot tell. Long before the first empires of Mesopotamia, a different kind of mark was being made in the soil of southeastern Europe. The Vinca culture, a Neolithic society that thrived from the 6th to the 5th millennium before the Common Era, produced some of the oldest symbolic markings in the world. Found on clay figurines, spindle walls, and pottery fragments, these Vinca symbols are a collection of simple, incised lines, crosses, chevrons, and what look like branching trees. Their extreme age is staggering, predating the earliest Sumerian cuneiform by over 1,000 years. This presents a profound and contentious question. Are we looking at the world's earliest writing system, or merely sophisticated proto-writing, a system of ownership marks and religious symbols that never quite crossed the threshold into recording spoken language? The distinction is critical. True writing represents the sounds and words of a specific language, allowing for the full expression of human thought from a recipe to a poem. Proto-writing, on the other hand, conveys information but is limited, like a series of traffic signs or logos that communicate concepts without forming sentences. Many archaeologists point to the context of these symbols. They appear on household objects and ritual items, often isolated or in very short sequences. There is no evidence of the lengthy, complex texts we associate with administrative records or literature. This suggests they may have served as makers' marks, denoting a clan or a craftsman, or as ritual signs imbued with spiritual meaning for a specific community. Yet the sheer number of distinct symbols, over 200, have been catalogued, hints at a system of considerable complexity. Could this be a lost Neolithic language, a way for the Vinca people to encode their beliefs about the world around them? If these scratches on clay are indeed a form of writing, it would force us to completely rewrite the history of literacy, shifting its birthplace from the Middle East to the heart of ancient Europe. The artifacts themselves offer no easy answer. A clay vessel might bear a single, powerful symbol, perhaps a badge of identity. Another fragment might show a small cluster of marks, a tantalizing hint of a phrase we will never be able to reconstruct. Without a longer text, a true Rosetta Stone from the Balkan Neolithic, the symbols remain profoundly ambiguous. They are a whisper from an unimaginably distant past, a promise of a story that may be forever out of reach. The quiet waters of a lake in northern Greece held a secret for over 7,000 years. Buried deep in the mud, a wooden tablet from the Dispilio settlement survived, a fragile relic from a time when most of Europe was still in the Stone Age. Dated to around 5,260 years before the Common Era, this piece of wood is older than the pyramids of Egypt, older than the first cities of Mesopotamia. Its surface is inscribed with a series of linear symbols, a sequence of marks that some researchers passionately argue is a form of writing. If they are correct, it would radically challenge our entire understanding of when and where writing began. The symbols themselves are not elaborate pictures. They are a series of straight and angled lines, some combined with circular or semicircular shapes, arranged in a clear, deliberate row. They were carved into the wood before it was carbonized and preserved by the lake's unique, oxygen-poor environment. This method of preservation is itself a miracle, as wood normally decays completely in a matter of centuries. Yet this very miracle presents the central controversy. The tablet is incredibly fragile, a piece of charcoal that threatens to crumble at a touch. After its discovery, it was immediately placed in a special conservation solution to prevent it from disintegrating, making prolonged, direct study by scholars nearly impossible. We rely on photographs and casts which can never fully capture the subtleties of the original artifact. This physical inaccessibility fuels the debate. Are these marks an early writing system, or are they something else? Skeptics point out that the sequence is short and isolated. It could be a sophisticated ownership mark, a tally of some kind, or a set of ritual symbols meaningful only to the person who carved them. Without a longer text, without multiple examples showing the same symbols used in different combinations, it is extraordinarily difficult to prove these marks represent a spoken language. Imagine finding a single sign with the letters STOP. You could understand its meaning as a concept, but you would have no proof that the individual letters could be rearranged to form other words like POTS or OPTS. The Dispilio tablet presents us with that same fundamental dilemma. Its true significance lies not in a definitive answer, but in the profound questions it forces us to ask. What is the line between a symbol and a word? How do we recognize the very first stirrings of literacy? This small, charred plank of wood is a ghost from a world we can barely comprehend. A silent argument that the human drive to record our thoughts may have awakened far earlier and in far more places than we ever believed possible. Deep within the Yellow River Basin, a Neolithic village known as Jaya, who held a secret for millennia. Excavations at this ancient site revealed something extraordinary: turtle shells buried in graves, some containing small stones, while others bore strange, etched markings. Dated to around 6,600 years before the Common Era, these symbols are more than 2,000 years older than the earliest known Chinese writing from the Shang dynasty. They are ghostly precursors, a potential first draft in the long story of Chinese literacy. The markings themselves are hauntingly simple. Some look like an eye, others like a cross or a branching line. They were carefully inscribed onto the plastrons, the flat underside of the turtle shell, a practice that eerily foreshadows the later Shang tradition of oracle bone script. The Shang would inscribe questions to the gods on bones and turtle shells, then apply heat to create cracks which priests would then interpret as divine answers. The Jayahu marks, however, appear alone, not alongside the elaborate crack patterns of later divination. This leads to the central, heated debate among scholars. Are we looking at the faint but definite beginnings of a writing system, or are these merely ownership marks, ritual symbols, or clan identifiers? The argument for proto-writing is compelling. The fact that similar symbols appear on multiple artifacts suggests a shared, understood meaning across the Jayahu community. one of the most famous symbols resembling the modern Chinese character for "I" appears repeatedly. Could this be a direct, albeit distant, ancestor to the later script? The possibility is tantalizing, a thread of cultural continuity stretching across thousands of years. Yet skeptics offer a more cautious interpretation. They point out that the symbols are always found in isolation. A shell bears one mark or perhaps two, but never a sequence that could form a phrase or a sentence. This isolation makes it impossible to prove they represent the sounds of a spoken language. They might instead be powerful emblems denoting a family line, a specific ritual, or the shaman who owned them. Imagine a modern craftsman signing their work with a unique logo, a symbol understood within their workshop but not part of a formal alphabet. The Jiahu shells could be exactly that, profound in their own context but not quite writing. Their true significance may lie in the ritual itself. The shells were found in graves, often alongside flutes made from crane bones, suggesting they were part of a sophisticated spiritual life. The act of inscribing a symbol on a sacred object like a turtle shell, an animal revered for its connection to the cosmos, could have been a way to fix a prayer or a claim in the physical world. The markings are a whisper of a complex belief system, a Neolithic attempt to bridge the human and the spirit realms. They stand as a beautiful and ambiguous prologue to one of the world's longest continuous writing traditions, a first, fragile step into a world of symbols that would one day evolve into the characters still used by billions today. The quiet village of Banpo offers another crucial piece in the ancient puzzle of Chinese writing. This Neolithic settlement, dated to the 5th millennium before the Common Era, left behind a remarkable collection of pottery marked with simple, incised symbols. Found on redware bowls and jars, these Banpo marks are more than just random scratches. They are a standardized set of over 22 distinct signs, including crosses, zigzags, Z-shapes, and what appear to be simplified drawings of plants or tools. Their consistency is what sparks the debate. If these were merely the idle doodles of different potters, we would expect a chaotic variety. Instead, we see the same limited set of symbols repeated across many different vessels. This suggests a shared, understood meaning within the Banpo community. But what kind of meaning did they hold? The argument that these marks represent an early, rudimentary form of writing is compelling. Proponents see them as potential clan insignia or ownership marks that could be read as words or names. A pot bearing a specific Z-shaped symbol might have been understood by everyone to belong to a particular family or individual, effectively making that symbol a logogram, a sign that stands for a whole word. This would place Banpo on the long and winding road that eventually led to the complex oracle bone script of the Shang dynasty over 2,000 years later. The evolution would have been slow, with symbols gaining complexity and phonetic value over countless generations. Yet many scholars urge caution, classifying the Banpo marks firmly as proto-writing. They point out a critical limitation: the symbols always appear alone. A pot might have one mark on its rim or another on its base, but we never find sequences of symbols that could form a sentence, a date, or a detailed record. This isolation makes it impossible to prove they represented the specific sounds of a spoken language. They were more likely a system of identification and categorization, similar to a farmer branding his livestock or a craftsman signing his work. The marks could indicate the potter's identity, the intended contents of the vessel, or its destination. Think of it as an ancient barcode, conveying essential information at a glance without the need for grammatical structure. The true significance of Banpo may not be in providing a definitive origin for Chinese writing, but in illustrating the essential cultural groundwork that made writing possible. It shows a society developing a shared visual language, a critical step toward the moment when those symbols would break free from representing only things and begin to capture the very sound of human speech. Across the ocean, another ancient culture was carving its history into stone. The Isthmian script, also known as Epi Olmec, emerged in the tropical lowlands of what is now Veracruz, Mexico. This civilization flourished for 1,000 years, from around 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after, building a society of impressive artistry and complex cosmology. Their writing system is one of Mesoamerica's great enigmas, a script that seems to stand at a crossroads between older, simpler symbol systems and the dazzling complexity of the classic Maya hieroglyphs that would follow. The evidence for this script is hauntingly sparse. We have only a handful of major inscriptions, the most famous being the La Mojara Stela. This towering stone monument is a masterpiece of narrative art, depicting an elaborately dressed ruler standing in a scene of divine power. But it is the columns of beautifully carved glyphs running down its side that hold the real mystery. They represent the longest known Isthmian text, a potential treasure trove of history, yet its story remains largely untold. The challenge of decipherment is twofold. First, there is the sheer lack of material. With so few texts, scholars struggle to find repeating patterns or common phrases that are the lifeblood of code breaking. Second, the language behind the script is almost certainly a very early form of the Zoquian language, a tongue that, while known from later periods, provides no easy key to this ancient writing. This has not stopped determined efforts to crack the code. A breakthrough came when researchers identified calendrical signs, allowing them to pinpoint dates on the stela. This provided a fixed framework, a series of known points in the otherwise unknown text. From there, they proposed a partial decipherment, suggesting the monument records the rise to power, a military victory, and the eventual assassination of a ruler named Harvester Mountain Lord. Yet this interpretation is hotly contested. Other experts argue that the proposed readings are not yet reliable, that the methods used are circular, building assumptions upon assumptions without external verification. The controversy highlights a fundamental tension in the field. How much can we extrapolate from such limited data? The relationship between Isthmian and the later Maya script adds another layer of intrigue. Some signs look strikingly similar, suggesting the Maya may have adapted or been influenced by this earlier writing system. If true, Isthmian could be a missing link, a crucial step in the evolution of Mesoamerican literacy. But without more text, this remains a compelling theory. The La Mojara Stela stands as a silent giant, its carved surface a complex and beautiful message from a world we can only partially reconstruct, a king's biography waiting for a reader. The quest for the origins of writing in the Americas leads us deep into the humid green heartland of the Olmec, the so-called mother culture of Mesoamerica. Here, among the colossal stone heads that stare silently from the jungle, we find the Cascajal block, a palm-sized slab of serpentine stone that has ignited one of archaeology's most passionate debates. Discovered in a quarry in the state of Veracruz, this artifact is unassuming in size but monumental in its implications. Its surface is covered with 62 distinct symbols arranged in clear horizontal rows. These are not random scratches, they are a sequence of glyphs including depictions of insects, corn, a throne, and abstract shapes, all carved with deliberate precision. The block's proponents argue it is the oldest known writing in the New World, dating to the early first millennium before the Common Era. If authentic, it would push back the timeline of American literacy by centuries, suggesting the Olmec were not just master sculptors but also sophisticated writers. Yet, from the moment it was presented to the world, the block was shrouded in controversy. Its discovery was not made by archaeologists during a controlled dig, but by road builders who reportedly found it in a pile of debris. This lack of a clear, documented context immediately raised red flags. How can we be certain it is genuinely ancient and not an elaborate modern forgery? The symbols themselves are unique. Nothing exactly like this text has been found elsewhere in the Olmec world, making it a solitary data point. Skeptics question whether a single, short text can truly be considered a writing system, or if it might be a collection of powerful religious symbols, a shaman's ritual prayer stone without grammatical structure. The very material of the block adds another layer of mystery. Serpentine is a soft stone, and the glyphs show remarkably little wear for an object supposedly handled and used for over 2,000 years. This pristine condition feels almost too good to be true. The debate over the cascadal block cuts to the very core of how we understand cultural development. If it is genuine, it forces us to re-evaluate the Olmec, seeing them not merely as a precursor to the Maya, but as intellectual pioneers who independently invented the profound technology of writing. Their symbols could hold the key to understanding their worldview, their kings, and their gods. If it is a forgery, it represents a cruel hoax, a stolen opportunity to hear the first whispers of a continent's story. For now, the block sits in a museum, a beautiful and contentious puzzle. Its 62 symbols remain a locked door, and we are still searching for the hand that holds the key. High on a flattened mountaintop in the valley of Oaxaca, the Zapotec people built their magnificent capital, Monte Albán. From this city of temples and plazas, they presided over a powerful state, and to record their history, they developed one of the earliest writing systems in the Americas. Zapotec script began to appear on stone monuments around 600 years before the Common Era, a collection of elegant, carved hieroglyphs that capture the gaze with their intricate detail. These are not simple pictures. The script is a sophisticated blend using logograms, which are symbols that represent entire words or ideas, alongside syllabic signs which spell out words sound by sound. You can see this complexity on the famous Danzante slabs, stone panels depicting captured and slain enemies. The glyphs accompanying these figures are thought to record names and titles, a stark roster of the city's victories. Yet, for all its early promise and influence, the Zapotec script remains only partially understood, a locked door for which we have only a few fragile keys. The primary obstacle is the small corpus of texts. While we have several hundred inscriptions, the vast majority are incredibly brief. A monument might display a calendar date and a name, or a single verb like conquered next to a place glyph. It is as if we have recovered the chapter headings of Zapotec history, but the chapters themselves are missing. We lack the long, narrative texts that would reveal the full grammar and vocabulary of their language, the stories of dynastic successions, alliances, and myths that we know from the later Maya. This scarcity makes every attempt at decipherment a painstaking process of fitting together tiny, scattered pieces. Scholars can often read the dates, as the Zapotec used a sophisticated calendar system, and they can identify the names of places and sometimes people. But the verbs, the connectors, the subtle nuances of the language largely escape us. We can see that a certain ruler captured a town on a specific day, but we cannot hear his speech or understand the reason for the conflict. This script's greatest legacy may be its profound influence on its neighbors. Many epigraphers see a clear line of evolution from the early Zapotec glyphs to the dazzling complexity of classic Maya writing. The Maya did not invent their script from nothing. They built upon a foundation laid centuries earlier in the highlands of Oaxaca. Concepts like using both word signs and sound signs, and the very idea of carving royal histories in stone, seem to have traveled along trade routes, transforming as they were adopted and refined. The stones of Monte Albán stand as silent mentors, their carved surfaces holding the origins of a literary tradition that would one day flourish in the rainforests to the east. South along the Nile, beyond the last cataracts of Egypt, a kingdom of formidable power rose from the desert sands. This was Kush, and from their capital at Meroe, its rulers commanded an empire that once even conquered Egypt itself. To administer their state and proclaim their glory, they developed the Meroitic script, a writing system that presents a paradox as stark as the landscape it came from. We can read it, but we cannot understand it. The sounds are clear, yet the meaning is lost. The script itself is an alphabetic system, a collection of 23 signs, and thanks to the diligent work of scholars, we know the phonetic value of each one. We can pronounce the words on a Meroitic stele with confidence. We can sound out the names of kings and queens, but what those words actually mean, the stories they tell, and the prayers they offer, remains a profound mystery. The problem is not the writing, but the language it represents. Meroitic is a linguistic island, completely isolated. It has no known relatives, no living descendants, no sister languages to which we can compare it. When the Rosetta Stone was deciphered, scholars had Coptic, a later form of the Egyptian language, to help them fill in the gaps. For Meroitic, there is no such key. It stands alone, a language family of one, with no bridge to any other known tongue. The nature of the surviving texts deepens the silence. The vast majority of Meroitic inscriptions we have are funerary. They are epitaphs carved on stone slabs, marking the tombs of the elite. These texts are beautiful, but they are also incredibly formulaic. They follow a strict, repetitive pattern, typically recording the name of the deceased, the names of their parents, a prayer to the gods, and little else. It is as if the only surviving literature from our own world were a collection of gravestones that all read, "Here lies John, son of William and Mary, may he rest in peace." From these, you could learn names and a few stock religious phrases, but you could never reconstruct a language's full vocabulary, its grammar, or the rich tapestry of its daily life. You would not find words for trade, or harvest, or love. How can you decipher a language when your only dictionary is a book of obituaries? A handful of longer, non-funerary texts do exist, including a royal chronicle from the Temple of Ammon at Meroe. These hold the potential for a breakthrough, offering more complex sentences and a different subject matter. Yet without a bilingual text or a known relative language, even these longer passages are like a complex lock for which we have no key. The sounds echo, a ghost of a language spoken by a people who built pyramids and rivaled Rome, but the voice itself has faded into an eternal whisper. The port city of Byblos was a hub of ancient commerce, a place where Egyptian papyrus and cedar wood from Lebanon were traded across the known world. Yet among the ruins of this vibrant Phoenician city, archaeologists uncovered a set of inscriptions that defy its cosmopolitan history. On bronze spatulas and a handful of other precious objects, they found the Byblos syllabary, a script from the 2nd millennium before the Common Era that stands as a perfect, self-contained mystery. The script is visually distinct, a set of roughly 114 signs that seem to strike a balance between the pictographic and the abstract. They are not the familiar letters of the later Phoenician alphabet, which would one day spread across the Mediterranean and become the ancestor of our own. Instead, these glyphs feel like a unique and local invention, a system developed to record a language that has since vanished from the earth. For decades, scholars have tried to force this script into a known family to find a key that would unlock its code. Some argued it must be an early form of Greek, while others saw connections to the Cypriot syllabary used on the island of Cyprus. Another theory proposed it was a direct ancestor of the Phoenician alphabet itself, a missing link in the evolution of writing. Yet every single attempt has crumbled. The proposed translations fail to produce coherent meaning, the linguistic patterns do not align, and the cultural context refuses to fit. The very objects that bear the script add to the confusion. Bronze spatulas are often associated with ritual or medical purposes. Were these sacred objects inscribed with prayers or the names of gods? Or were they tools of administration, their inscriptions noting quantities or owners? We simply do not know. The syllabary exists in a vacuum, a writing system from one of the most connected ports of the ancient world that communicates nothing we can understand. It is a ghost in the marketplace, a silent testament to a language and a people whose story is carved in metal, waiting for a reader who may never come. The story of the alphabet begins not with a clean slate, but with a brilliant act of repurposing. In the harsh, copper-rich deserts of the Sinai Peninsula, around 19 to 16 centuries before the Common Era, a community of Canaanite laborers working for the Egyptians performed a linguistic revolution. They were surrounded by the imposing, complex hieroglyphs of their overlords, a writing system of hundreds of signs reserved for kings and gods. But these workers needed something simpler, something practical for their own language and their own records. Their solution was the Proto-Sinaitic script, and it represents one of the most important breakthroughs in human communication. The genius of Proto-Sinaitic lies in a principle called the acrophonic principle. The inventors looked at a small selection of Egyptian hieroglyphs, but instead of adopting their original meanings, they took only the first sound of the Semitic word for the object depicted. For instance, they saw the Egyptian glyph for a house, which was a simple square. In their own Canaanite language, the word for house was beit. So they took this square shape and assigned it to represent not the concept of a house, but simply the consonant sound b. They saw the hieroglyph for water, a wavy line which was mem in their tongue, and it became the letter for m, a human head, rosh, gave them r. This was the monumental leap, the birth of the alphabet, where symbols stopped representing whole ideas and started representing individual sounds. With a set of just about 30 signs for consonants, they could now build any word in their language. This was a democratization of writing, moving it from the temple walls to the mine shafts. Yet, for all its world-changing influence, the script itself is only partially understood. We have deciphered the sound values of the signs because we can trace their evolution directly into the later Phoenician alphabet, and from there into Greek, and ultimately into our own. We can pronounce the Proto-Sinaitic inscriptions. The problem is the language those sounds form. The texts are short and enigmatic, carved onto statues and mine walls. They often seem to be dedications to a goddess, perhaps a Canaanite deity known as Bolat. But without longer texts, the grammar and vocabulary of this early Semitic tongue remain just beyond our grasp. We can sound out the words, but we cannot be certain of their full meaning. It is the ultimate paradox to hold the key to the lock but not know the room you have unlocked. This script is the humble, rough ancestor of every book you have ever read, every sign you have ever seen. Its invention was a quiet event in a desert outpost, but its echo would eventually circle the globe. While we can trace the ancestry of our own alphabet, other scripts remain stubbornly isolated. On the sun-washed coast of ancient Anatolia, the city of Side developed a unique writing system that speaks a language lost to time. The Sidetic script appears on just a handful of coins and stone inscriptions, a tiny collection of texts that has baffled scholars for generations. This was no primitive marking, but a fully developed alphabet used from roughly the 5th to the 3rd centuries before the Common Era, a period when Side was a bustling, independent port. The script's letters are a beautiful and curious mix, showing clear influence from the Greek alphabet in their forms, yet arranged to write a language that was definitively not Greek. This is the core of the mystery. We recognize the shapes of the letters, but the words they form are meaningless in any known tongue. The language of Sidetic is an isolate, unrelated to its Greek, Lycian, or Lydian neighbors, a linguistic ghost from a city that clearly had its own strong identity. With so few inscriptions, the entire effort of decipherment rests on a fragile foundation. The longest texts are brief epitaphs on tombs, offering little more than names and formulaic phrases. How can you reconstruct a grammar, a vocabulary, or a history from mere fragments? It is like trying to understand an entire novel from a single, torn-out page. The coins provide another clue, often bearing the name of the city, Side. But this single confirmed word is not enough to build a translation upon. Every proposed reading is a house of cards, built on assumptions that the next tiny fragment of text could topple. the script of Side is a powerful reminder that the ancient world was a tapestry of diverse voices, many of which have been irrevocably silenced, their stories condensed into a few elegant but unreadable lines on stone. The island of Cyprus was a vital hub in the late Bronze Age, a bustling crossroads where ships from the Aegean, Anatolia, and the Levant traded copper and luxuries. And here, alongside the ingots of its famous metal, another precious commodity was being exchanged, the very idea of writing. The script that emerged is known as Cypro-Minoan, a name that reveals its dual heritage. It is a syllabic system like the Minoan scripts of Crete, adapted and brought to this eastern Mediterranean island, likely by seafarers and settlers. For centuries, from the 16th to the 12th century before the Common Era, it was used to inscribe clay balls, cylinder seals, and clay tablets, the administrative tools of a thriving maritime economy. Yet this crucial link between the Aegean and the Near East speaks to us only in fragments. The entire corpus of Cypro-Minoan inscriptions numbers little more than 200, and most are devastatingly short, some bearing just a single sign. It is as if we have recovered the scattered labels from ancient shipping crates, but never the manifest that explains what was inside. The script's greatest importance, however, lies in its legacy. It did not simply vanish. Centuries later, after the collapse of the Bronze Age palaces, a new script appeared on Cyprus, the Cypriot syllabary. This script was used to write Greek, and the connection is undeniable. Many of its signs bear a clear, direct resemblance to those of the older Cypro-Minoan. This strongly suggests that the later Greek-speaking inhabitants of the island did not invent a new script, but adapted the one already in use by their predecessors. Cypro-Minoan was the bridge. It carried the technology of writing through a dark age, preserving it until it could be repurposed for a new language and a new era. The central challenge for decipherers is the same one that plagues its relative linear A. We can see the family resemblance in the signs, but the language those signs recorded is completely unknown. It was almost certainly not Greek. It may have been a pre-Greek language native to Cyprus, or one related to the languages of Anatolia or the Levant. Without a bilingual text, without a single lengthy document, the sounds we tentatively assign to its signs are just guesses. We are left with a profound historical irony. We can read the later Cypriot syllabary perfectly, understanding the Greek it was used to write. But we cannot read its direct ancestor, the script that kept the flame of literacy alive on the island for centuries. The bridge stands, but the traffic that first crossed it remains a mystery. The rugged landscapes of the Iberian Peninsula hold the echoes of a unique intellectual experiment in writing. Between the 7th and 1st centuries before the Common Era, a culture developed what we now call the Southwest Paleo-Hispanic script. This was not a simple borrowing from Greek or Phoenician traders who frequented the coast. It was a distinctive local creation, a hybrid system that brilliantly merged two different principles of writing. Some of its characters were syllabic, representing a consonant followed by a vowel like ta or po. Others were alphabetic, standing for a single consonant alone. This semi-syllabic design was a clever adaptation, perfectly suited to the specific sound patterns of the ancient language spoken in the region. Imagine a keyboard that had both entire syllables and individual letters, allowing for a very efficient way to spell out words. Yet for all its ingenuity, the script remains a deeply frustrating puzzle. The number of known inscriptions is desperately small, mostly carved on stone slabs and pillars. They are often just a few lines long, offering a glimpse of a sentence but never the full paragraph that would reveal its grammar. The central question is, what language do these stones preserve? The two main candidates are Tartessian, the mysterious language of a wealthy, semi-legendary kingdom mentioned by Greek historians, and Iberian, a slightly later language from the eastern part of the peninsula. Without a bilingual text, we cannot be sure. scholars can sound out some of the inscriptions using the known values of the signs, but the results are just sequences of syllables that mean nothing in any language we understand. It is like perfectly pronouncing a word in a dream, only to wake up and realize it has no definition in the waking world. The ongoing efforts to crack this code now rely heavily on computer analysis and statistical modeling, searching for patterns that might hint at verb structures or repeating names of gods and places. Each new stone found is a potential key, but for now, this sophisticated script stands as a monument to a people who clearly had much to say, but whose voice has been reduced to a tantalizing, silent whisper on weathered rock. Across the vast expanse of the Sahara, the story of writing is carved not on clay, but on the very skin of the desert. The Lubico-Berber script, known today as Tifinagh, is the ancient writing of the Berber peoples, a collection of geometric and linear characters etched for centuries onto rock faces and stone monuments. Its origins are profoundly ancient, possibly reaching back over 2,000 years, a testament to the long and enduring culture of North Africa's indigenous inhabitants. The script itself is strikingly elegant, composed of sharp angles, circles, and lines that seem to mirror the stark beauty of the desert landscape. You can find these inscriptions alongside magnificent rock art, depicting scenes of chariots, cattle, and daily life, creating a powerful visual narrative where image and text intertwine. Yet, this very context is what makes the oldest forms of the script so difficult to decipher. The inscriptions are almost always brief, often just a name, a short phrase, or a single word left as a marker by a traveler, a warrior, or a herder. How do you reconstruct a language from its graffiti? Without lengthy texts, without a royal chronicle or a legal document, scholars are left with fragments of a vast puzzle. A single rock panel might show a beautifully rendered giraffe and next to it a line of Tifinagh characters. Does the text name the artist, describe the scene, or offer a prayer to the gods? We have no way to be certain. The modern Tuareg people, a Berber group, still use a form of Tifinagh today, and this provides a crucial link to the past. We can read the modern script, but the language it writes now has evolved over millennia. Applying these modern sound values to the ancient inscriptions often produces results that are confusing or nonsensical, suggesting the ancient language was different or that the signs themselves had shifted their meanings over time. The desert holds its secrets tightly, and the oldest messages of the Berber people, while visible to all, remain a silent chronicle of a civilization that mastered the art of writing under the relentless sun. The symbols carved into the wood of northern Europe tell a different kind of story. Among the misty forests and fjords, Germanic tribes developed the Elder Futhach, the oldest form of the runic alphabet, around the 2nd century of the Common Era. These are not the gentle curves of Mediterranean scripts, but sharp, angular lines designed to be sliced cleanly into wood or stone. Each rune, from Fehu, meaning wealth or cattle, to Ansars, representing a god or divine message, held both a sound and a deep intrinsic meaning. Yet the origin of this powerful script is a puzzle wrapped in trade and travel. How did the people of the north acquire the very idea of writing? The most compelling theories point south to the Roman legions and the merchants who crossed the Alps. The shapes of the runes bear a striking, though simplified, resemblance to Old Italic and Latin letters. A Roman capital letter H and the rune Hagalaz, which looks like a capital H with a bar in the middle, share a clear family resemblance. The Roman R and the rune Rado are also undeniably similar. This suggests a moment of brilliant cultural synthesis, where Germanic mercenaries serving in the Roman army or traders interacting along the frontier saw the Latin alphabet in action. They did not simply copy it, however. They adapted it, stripping away the flowing forms that were ill-suited for carving into hard materials and creating a new, streamlined set of characters that reflected their own world and their own language, Proto-Norse. Some scholars propose an even more ancient link, suggesting the inspiration may have come from northern Italic scripts used by the Etruscans or other Alpine peoples. whose writing systems were also angular and might have been encountered through earlier trade networks. This was not a passive borrowing, but an active, deliberate creation. The Germanic peoples selected and transformed foreign symbols to create a writing system that was uniquely their own, a tool for magic, for memory, and for marking identity in a world where the written word was still a rare and powerful craft. The vast grasslands of Mongolia witnessed the rise of a powerful nomadic empire, the Liao dynasty, founded by the Khitan people. To govern their vast territories, which stretched from the Pacific coast deep into Central Asia, the Khitan knew they needed more than military might. They needed the power of the written word. Around the year 920, their emperor commanded the creation of a unique writing system, a script designed to reflect the majesty of their state. This was the Khitan large script, a monumental logographic system where each complex character represented an entire word or concept, much like Chinese characters. It was a declaration of cultural independence, a way to say that the Khitan were not merely subjects of their settled neighbors, but a civilization in their own right. We can see the legacy of their ambition in the stone stelae they left behind, towering monuments inscribed with elegant, blocky characters. Yet these grand proclamations are silent. The Khitan large script remains one of history's most stubborn locks, not because we lack clues, but because the clues we have lead to another locked door. The greatest hope for decipherment lies in its descendant, the Jurchen script. After the fall of the Liao dynasty, the Jurchen people who founded the subsequent Jin dynasty admired the Khitan system so much that they created their own script based directly on its principles. We have actually managed to decipher a significant portion of the Jurchen script thanks to a priceless bilingual Chinese Jurchen vocabulary list. This provides a map, a guide to how one script family works. The tragedy is that this map only gets us so far. Knowing how the Jurchen script functions does not automatically tell us the meaning of the older Khitan characters, because the two systems recorded two completely different languages. It is like having a detailed key for a Spanish lock and then trying to use it to open a Portuguese door. The basic mechanism might look similar, but the internal pins are arranged differently. The Khitan language itself is a profound mystery, an isolate with no known living relatives. Without a Rosetta Stone, without a single lengthy text that pairs Khitan with a language we fully understand, every translation attempt is built on shifting sand. Scholars can sometimes make educated guesses, recognizing a character for horse or sky based on context and comparison to Jurchen, but the vast majority of the vocabulary and all of the grammar remain hidden. The grand stone inscriptions stand as magnificent tombstones for a lost language, their proud characters proclaiming a history we can see but cannot read. But the Khitan emperors soon realized their grand script had a problem. It was beautiful and imposing on stone monuments, but it was also cumbersome for the rapid pace of administration. So, just a few years after the large script was introduced, a second system was created, known as the Khitan small script. This was not merely a smaller version of the same thing, it was a completely different approach to writing. Where the large script used thousands of complex characters, each representing a whole word, the small script was a syllabic system. It used a much smaller set of around 400 basic characters, with each one representing a syllable, a consonant-vowel combination like ka or lai. This made it far more efficient for writing out words phonetically, for keeping court records, and for composing documents that needed speed and clarity. You can see the difference clearly when you look at them side by side. A large script inscription looks dense and blocky, like a wall of intricate symbols. A small script text, in contrast, appears more linear and flowing, its characters arranged in vertical columns like a kind of shorthand. Our understanding of the small script is slightly better, but only by a degree. Scholars have managed to identify the phonetic values of about 150 of its syllabic signs. This means we can often pronounce the words written in the small script. Yet this is another hollow victory, because we still do not know what most of those words mean. The language they are spelling out remains the same mysterious, untranslatable tongue. It is like being able to sound out a word in a language you have never heard before. The sounds are clear, but the meaning is a complete mystery. The fate of both Cretan scripts is sealed by the same fundamental loss, the extinction of the Cretan language itself. Without a living descendant or a comprehensive bilingual text, the grand monuments and the efficient documents stand as two sides of the same impenetrable coin. One script proclaims its majesty in silent symbols, while the other whispers its secrets in syllables we can pronounce but never truly understand. A single, broken slab of sandstone holds a secret that could reshape our understanding of Southeast Asia. This is the Singapore stone, a relic discovered at the mouth of the Singapore River in 1818, a time when the island was still a sleepy fishing village under British control. The stone was massive, but it was not intact. It was merely a fragment of a much larger monolith that had been blown apart, according to local accounts, by the British themselves just to clear the way for building a fort and its quarters. The surviving piece was about 3 feet high and 3 feet wide, its surface covered in about 50 lines of elegant, deeply carved characters, a script that no one could read. This was not some crude marking. It was a sophisticated, beautiful inscription, a clear sign that the history of this place was far older and more significant than anyone had suspected. The script itself is the heart of the mystery. Experts believe the stone dates from the 10th to the 14th centuries, a period when Singapore was known as Temasek, a thriving port in a vast maritime network. The characters do not resemble any writing system from the great empires of the region, like the Sanskrit used in nearby Java or the Khmer script of Cambodia. They are unique, possibly a script developed locally to record an ancient Malay language or another tongue lost to time. This is what makes the stone so tantalizing. It is a direct voice from the golden age of the Srivijaya or Majapahit empires, a first-hand account waiting to be heard. Yet that voice was brutally silenced. In 1843, during renovations to expand the fort, the British authorities made the catastrophic decision to demolish the remaining stone. It was dynamited into rubble to make way for a powder magazine. The act was one of sheer colonial disregard, an erasure of a culture's deepest memory for the sake of mere convenience. Only a few fragments were saved, and of those, only one made its way to the collections of the Royal Asiatic Society in Calcutta. Tragically, even this last key piece was lost, likely during the upheavals of the Second World War. Today, all we have are sketches and a single paper cast made before the final destruction. The inscription is now a ghost, known only from these faint impressions. The remaining characters, perhaps just a dozen that are clearly legible, have become the focus of intense scholarly work. What could this text have said? Some believe it was a royal edict, a proclamation of laws from a powerful ruler of ancient Singapore. Others think it might have been a curse, a protective incantation meant to guard the entrance to the river. The most compelling theory suggests it recorded a glorious victory or the founding myth of the settlement, a story that would connect this island to the epic narratives of the Malay annals. Deciphering even a few words could prove that Singapore was not a blank slate before 1819, but a center of ancient literacy and political power. Modern attempts to crack the code rely on these poor quality copies, comparing the strange characters to every known script from Sumatra, Java, and the Malay Peninsula. It is a desperate race against time and the echoes of an explosion, a struggle to read a message that was almost completely obliterated. The Singapore stone is a stark lesson in the fragility of history, a reminder that the keys to our past can be shattered in a moment, leaving behind only fragments and an enduring, silent question. Our final script is perhaps the most visually arresting of them all, a book filled with strange symbols and even stranger pictures. The Rohunk Codex was discovered in a Hungarian library in the 19th century, a 450-page manuscript bound in leather. Its pages are a chaotic tapestry of unknown writing and bizarre illustrations, depicting scenes of warfare with soldiers carrying pikes and religious ceremonies with figures that seem to be a confusing blend of Christian, Muslim, and pagan traditions. Crosses stand alongside crescent moons and sun symbols, creating a visual language as perplexing as the script itself. The text is written from right to left in a dense, alphabetic script of almost 200 unique characters, many of which are tiny, intricate, and difficult to distinguish. From the moment it surfaced, the codex has been a magnet for the most extreme theories. Is it a genuine relic of a lost culture, perhaps a record of the Dacians or the early Hungarians before they settled in Europe? Or is it an elaborate and brilliant forgery created to deceive collectors and historians? The sheer effort required to produce such a long and complex text makes the hoax theory both compelling and problematic. Why would anyone go to such incredible lengths? The fantastical suggestions only grow from there. Some have proposed it is a secret history of the Knights Templar or a gospel written in the language of Atlantis. The illustrations fuel these fires, showing scenes that do not match any known historical context, with armies fighting in landscapes that feel both familiar and utterly alien. Modern analysis has stripped away some of the mystery, but not the core enigma. Radiocarbon dating of the paper places the book squarely between the 1530s and 1660s, proving it is an early modern artifact and not an ancient one. This rules out some of the wilder claims, but it does not tell us who wrote it or why. Cryptographers have attacked the code with every tool available, from frequency analysis to sophisticated computer algorithms. They have found patterns that suggest a real language lies beneath the script, with clear word divisions and a structure that seems too consistent for random gibberish. Some researchers even believe they have identified a few words, like a term for god or king, but these isolated successes have not led to a full decipherment. The language, if it is one, remains an isolate, a ghost tongue with no known relatives. The Rohunk Codex is a perfect storm of unsolved mysteries, a book that offers both words and pictures in abundance, yet reveals nothing. It sits in its library, a beautiful and maddening puzzle, a final reminder that some stories are written not to be forgotten, but to wait patiently for a reader who can finally understand their strange and silent world. Each of these silent scripts presents a unique labyrinth, yet they all force codebreakers to confront the same fundamental walls. The most famous key in history is the Rosetta Stone, a single slab that bore the same message in 3 scripts, including known Greek. This bilingual or trilingual text provides a direct translation, a perfect map from the unknown to the known. For the vast majority of undeciphered scripts, no such map exists. Without a parallel text, scholars are left staring at symbols with no starting point, no way to anchor their guesses in reality. Imagine trying to learn a foreign language with a dictionary written entirely in that same language. You would recognize the alphabet, but every definition would be just another incomprehensible word. This is the paralyzing dilemma facing anyone who studies Proto Elamite or the Indus script. The second great barrier is an unknown language. Even if you could somehow sound out the words of the Meroitic script, you would be speaking nonsense because the language itself has no known relatives. It is a linguistic island, and we have no boat to reach it. Decipherment is not just about breaking a code, it is about rediscovering an entire language, its grammar, its vocabulary, and the way its people saw the world. This challenge is magnified exponentially by a third problem, the crushing brevity of the inscriptions. How can you detect the pattern of a grammar, the structure of a sentence, when your entire corpus of text is shorter than a grocery list? The beautiful seals of the Indus Valley or the cryptic Cretan hieroglyphs offer us phrases but never paragraphs. We have the vocabulary cards, but the book is missing. Add to this the ravages of time, where inscriptions are worn away, broken, or, like the Singapore stone, deliberately destroyed, and the task can feel impossible. Yet, the human drive to solve these puzzles is relentless. Today, the work has moved into the digital realm. Computational linguists now feed every known symbol and its context into powerful algorithms. These programs search for hidden patterns, calculating the frequency of certain signs, how they cluster together, and where they tend to appear. This statistical analysis can sometimes identify probable grammatical markers or even suggest which signs might represent numbers or names. It is a process of finding the ghost in the machine, the subtle mathematical heartbeat of a lost language. This modern approach does not provide instant translations, but it builds a scaffold of probability, a statistical framework that can guide more traditional research. It is a slow, meticulous conversation between human intuition and machine logic, a partnership striving to hear the faintest whispers from the past. 25 ancient scripts, from the sun-baked plains of Iran to the most isolated island on Earth, represent a chorus of lost human voices. This is not a single mystery, but a sprawling tapestry of them, a testament to the incredible diversity of human thought and the stubborn silence that time can impose. Each undeciphered script is a locked door to an entire civilization's inner world, their laws, their poetry, their daily worries, and their deepest beliefs. We stand surrounded by the echoes of empires, kingdoms, and humble villages, all of whom had something vital to say, yet whose stories are trapped behind barriers of unknown language, scarce inscriptions, and the simple ravages of millennia. This collective silence reminds us that the history we know is only a fragment, a tiny illuminated clearing in a vast, dark forest of forgotten time. These scripts are the shadows in that forest, the hints of entire chapters of the human experience that we have yet to read. The quest to understand them is far from over. It is a grand, ongoing puzzle that connects us directly to our shared past, challenging us to listen more closely to the whispers carved in clay, stone, and wood. So we turn this final question to you. After this journey through lost languages, which of these silent scripts captures your imagination the most? Is it the practical records of Proto Elamite, the beautiful seals of the Indus Valley, or the lonely spiral of the Phaistos Disc? Share your choice in the comments below and let us know which historical mystery we should explore together next.